All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Katie Monahan, and I'm a communication strategist here at the Ohio Arts Council. And I am so pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Instagram for Artists. So this is the first webinar in our three-part Build Your Artistic Brand webinar series with the fabulous Robin Cembalest. And so if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to go ahead and register for parts 2 and 3 that we have coming up here in February and March. Robin's going to talk about crafting your bio and your artist statement in February, on February 27th. And then she'll be back with us to talk about public speaking for artists, which I know is something we all could use a little bit of additional PD on. So she'll be here on March 27th to talk about that. I will drop the link to register for those in the chat here. Let me just do that real quick. So make sure you register for those. Now, before we bring Robin on, there are just a few housekeeping items that I need to go over. So first, everyone tuning in today is in listen-only mode, but that doesn't mean that you can't ask questions. If you have a question as we go throughout the webinar, feel free to drop that in the Q&A box. We will hold all the questions until the dedicated Q&A session at the end. I just ask that you use the Q&A instead of the chat. It's easier to track questions that way, and we don't want to miss anyone. Next, live captioning is available for today's webinar, and you can access those captions by clicking on the closed captioning icon at the bottom of your screen there. And if you have any audio issues or trouble connecting, we recommend refreshing your browser. If that doesn't work, try logging off and logging back in. And of course, please keep in mind that because Robin and I are presenting from different locations, there may be some slight variations in bandwidth or internet stability. So if one of us freezes or something like that, thank you in advance for bearing with us. We promise we'll do our best to keep on rolling through any little tech glitches. And finally, we are recording today's webinar, and the recording will be available on our webinars page at oac.ohio.gov/webinars and on our YouTube channel by early next week. All right, so that does it for housekeeping. Now I am really excited to welcome our special guest presenter, Robin Cembalest. Robin, thanks so much for being here. I know Robin's going to tell you all about her background here in a bit, so we are so fortunate to be partnering with you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to jump right to my presentation so we have plenty of time for questions. Now you should see a screen that says Instagram for Artists. If not, let me know. Okay, just a bit about, thank you. Just a bit about me. For most of my career, I was a cultural journalist, a writer, editor, and reporter. Here you can see me on assignment for Art Forum magazine at the Guggenheim Bilbao in Spain. And in the spectrum of art writing, I was always more on the news side of things. So I was covering news and trends and lawsuits and things like that, not so much criticism. And then in 1998, I became the executive editor of Art News magazine, where I greatly expanded the kinds of cultural communities the magazine covered and launched the digital and social media feeds. So in 2014, they sold Art News, and I saw which way the wind was blowing. So when people said, so you're going to be a writer or an editor someplace, I said, no, I'm going to lean into my Instagram. And I traded my journalist cap and reinvented myself as a kind of chronicler of the New York art scene and beyond. And I covered all these exhibitions that I went to, and I made a specialty of these heartwarming photos of artists with their work, which are always on my feed. And over time, this feed turned out to be a very kind of useful service, and people began to introduce me as an influencer. What can I say? And I've built this following of about 55,000 people. And I started a business to help people throughout the art industry to build their own content in the digital era. So basically, that's what we're doing here. Oops, wrong class. No, just kidding. What is this broccoli and tofu doing here? Well, there are so many vitamins in this broccoli and so much protein in this tofu, but if we put them out on the table, we might find people don't consume them. And sometimes as artists, that's how it can be with our ideas, right? We have so much to say about what we're doing, but if we say everything, we might find that the people walk away with nothing. So we want to think about, if you will, serving up our ideas in a certain way. So on the left, we have these Mediterranean style tapas, the small passed plates of a few delicious ingredients. And that's kind of like your social because they're shared and people consume it standing up and so on. And then on the right, we have the deep dish stew, which might be more like your statement type of thing. So over the next 3 weeks, we will be cooking up a message which is conveying your artistic brand. So that's going to share who you are and what you do. It's going to share your essential and distinctive qualities that we want people to remember, and it's going to spark interest and action. Now, in our industry, it's not necessarily a click to buy industry, right? It's not like someone's going to see your Instagram and be, oh, I'll offer you a show or I'll buy this painting. I know it happens, but mostly it doesn't. So when we're talking about interest and action, we're talking about, do you have an Instagram? Can I go to your website? Where can I see your work? And so on. So that's why in these classes, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Instagram, into the bio and the artist statement and different ways to use them in different venues. And finally, in public speaking, which includes your elevator pitch and talking to the press. So let's get started. Oops, wrong class. No, just kidding. That's the last one. What is this medieval book of hours doing here? Well, in a certain way, it does relate to Instagram because the words are pictures. And look at all the different ways that the words and pictures interact here. You've got this scroll here, you got this text, the beautiful illuminated letter, you got the book, and then you have this speech bubble, thought bubble, which we're actually going to see another version of later. And the point of this is that even if you can't read any of this writing in a book like this, you're still going to understand the story through all the narrative that's unfolding through the pictures, right? Because when people look at pictures, whether it's a manuscript or a photo, they're kind of reading the image, right? And also, since it's a book, we're not trying to tell everything in every page because there's a narrative happening, right? It's part of a bigger story. So I'm not really saying that Instagram's like illuminated manuscripts because in Instagram, we have so many more tools. The words are just part of it, right? We have images, we have video, audio, music, the power of design, and the power of narrative. Then we've got all those social sharing tools, right? How are we using it to build visibility, to make connections and build relationships, because this industry is about relationships and connections and finding kindred spirits, right? You meet people, you show with them, travel with them, eat with them, collaborate with, and so on. And that's really what we're looking at much further beyond. Yes, we want to sell, but that's our main goal here on Instagram. And finally, we have our digital tools because the Instagram is a portal. It links to your website. It links to your openings and so on. So why are we doing this? I know I just flexed my numbers, but really it's not about the numbers. It's about the who. So what we're really looking here for is engagement off the app. I just said that, building community relationships, networks, and visibility, right? We're trying to get people to sell our art, to buy our art, to curate our art, to write about our art, to pay us to make art in residencies and commissions. We're also using Instagram for research to stay on top of different people and institutions we're interested in. If we're in a social practice, a social justice space, we're trying to actually influence, to change hearts and minds and heal the world. And then I put joy because I'm not a hater. So let's start with your profile. As I was saying, the profile is the landing page and portal. Now, back when I was at the magazine, they used to say that we had 2 or 3 seconds to capture the viewer's attention on the newsstand. And that's kind of how it is here, right? You ever been at an event where someone's like, what's your Instagram? And then they say, and they open it up, and then the other person just closes the phone. And I heard this once, you're not going to follow me, bro? Well, that really happened. But anyway, the point is we want to capture their attention in the first couple of seconds and then draw them in with all of the different real estate of content that we have on these. And I'm going to elaborate them in in a minute another slide, but my point is here that, again, we're not trying to just put broccoli on here. We're trying to cook up the all right, enough with the broccoli, Robin, but the point is people design them, right? They make them easy to consume. It's not just going to be a cut and paste of your website bio. It's going to have a more kind of personal quality. Now, how personal you get in terms of your kids and your dogs and sport teams is entirely up to you. There's a very wide variety of practice, and it's really a personal thing. Now, let's start with the profile photo. Here on the left, we can see that I searched for the name Jonathan Gardner. There's an artist named Jonathan Gardner. Now, that's a common name. So here comes the search results, but look at this. It's a big I. This is a detail of Jonathan Gardner's work. So in this case, and a lot of artists do that, they use a detail of their work for their profile photo in Instagram, right? It might be that you have a kind of cool figurative, it could be abstract, as long as it pops, right? That's the point. We want to be found. Now, you're still going to need a headshot for all of the campaigns we're going to be talking about very briefly. And remember that this is looked at on your phone, so you still want it to look good when it's really itty bitty. Then we have the bio. This is 150 characters, including spaces and emojis. And as I like to say, the art does not make itself, unless that's your thing, but that's separate, right? So we're trying to kind of say here in the bio, who are you, right? That's the first thing people want to know. So we might, and these are menus to choose from, right? You're not necessarily going to put all of this. We have our national identity, where we're living, where we're from, cultural identity, gender identity, geographic identity, and then you might have professional identity. Maybe you are in a residency or in a company or organization, or you're maybe in an activist group or an artistic group. It can be many different things. Then I wrote main creative practice because I know so many people have a multifarious practice, but if you have the good fortune of narrowing it down, go as deep as you can here, right? Because we want it to stick. And then we always want to have in the bio, if you have something going on, if you have a show coming up, put it in your bio. And in the promotion section that's coming up, I'm going to give you all other ways to promote your show in your Instagram. Now, this is a new thing called notes. Remember that text bubble that we saw in the manuscript? Well, look at this. I'm just saying. So people keep talking about how Instagram is copying TikTok, but in this case, it took a page more from Facebook and Twitter/X, because this is a status update. Look at this real estate. It's right on top of your profile picture. So this is Alba Triana wrote Closing at Locust. This is a show in Miami at Locust Projects. And this was, oh, I'm having a closing tonight. Or if you have an opening, you would certainly want to put it in your status, right? Other people use it to start conversations about certain subjects. So again, with people fleeing X, we're seeing, oops, come back. We see people using this in different ways. So they're only up for a day, and they only go to people that you follow in your friends groups. And you can use, sorry, up to 60 characters of text, 30-second music clips, 2-second video loops. As I said, they only go to people who follow you, and they show in your direct message box and on your profile. And again, if you have a kind of promotional toolkit, as you should, this would be on the list of things to do, right? And if you had any program happening during your show, you would want to, panel, workshop, whatever it is. And then you don't even have to remember to update it because it'll be gone. Highlights. Highlights are images and videos from Instagram stories. Instagram stories live at the top of the profile. I'm not showing it here. And they're only up for a day. So, and they really go to kind of your core audience. So a lot of times people will use this to show behind the scene. They're on the scene. They're showing the process in the studio. They're traveling and seeing exhibitions. You can use it a lot of different ways. Some are more personal, some are more professional. If you want your store highlights to stick around, you can pin them. You can change the default text that says highlights. If your highlights all say highlights, you can change that. to these short blurbs, like on view. How convenient is that? Someone's looking here, they come and they're interested. Instead of having to click all the way through to the website, here it is right there on the Instagram, and you can curate the cover photos as well. Now, these are they're not disappearing, but if this is your grid, here in the middle, we have the section. See, this is like a movie clip. That's going to be the reels. We're going to talk about that in a minute. There's going to be another button like that here for the highlight. So they're all going to go in here. In a button here, but they're still going to have those cover photos and cover lines, right? So you can continue to curate your highlights. I assure you that some of you have highlights that are like 200 weeks old, and I'm like, let it go, let it go. The same with the pinned posts, right? Here we have a pin. This makes it live at the top of the profile. So sometimes people forget to depin it, and it's like my opening in July, and now it's January or whatever. So I definitely recommend using the highlights in different ways. Now, you may have noticed, or you would know if you subscribe to my newsletter, that the grid has changed. It used to be squares, and now it's rectangles. You can go online. It's called the 5:4 portrait. You can go online and look at the specs for every single way that every part of Instagram has changed. I actually don't do that. I think in vertical. I shoot in vertical. I post in vertical. And when I do put text on my posts, I try and put it in the middle. Now, that I did used to post square ones, so look how good these look in rectangular, right? You want it to kind of look like this. Now, say that you are crushed because your grid looks really bad. This is what you do. You go to the post. You see how there's 3 dots there? Those 3 dots are the portal in Instagram to a lot of different things you can do. You click on the dots, scroll down to adjust preview, and then you hit this button that says fit. And then you see how it's badly cropped. I don't know, it's so little. I don't know, you can tell. You hit fit, and then I might not have used the right pictures. It magically fixed. So that's what you should do. Trust me, because I fixed a bunch of them. All right, let's move on to your feed. I like to call Instagram, I'm from magazines, what do you want? I like to call Instagram the magazine of you, in the sense that it's not so much a bulletin board, it's not a portfolio, it's a magazine, and it's also, kind of interactive because of all the sharing, but we're going to get to that in a minute. So what we see a lot of artists doing, and again, there's not one way to do it, is what you're seeing, doing, and making. And you're a character in your own story, because as I already said, my saying, the art doesn't make itself. Right now, you don't have to be doing a glamour shot. We're trying to show, we're trying to show ourselves in our studio. We're trying to get all these elements of who we are and what we do in this imagery. So here's Chanupa Hanskin, you're going to see in the studio, in the field, events, his work, his friends' work, things that might inspire him, and nature and culture and so on. And I think that's generally a good way to go. This is another one of my sayings. The wall, I started saying at museums, the wall turns into a window. All of a sudden, you can illuminate your process, right? And this is where the meaning starts to come from. And plus, this transformation of the humble materials into the artwork is why the rest of us are around to kind of see that, right? So not every single post, I don't think people read hardly anything. Again, just getting a sense. Because the other thing, I forgot this other saying I have, which is that the studio visit is the ask you can do. Not that you should do it, but you can't say to someone, you should not say to someone, because cringe, right? Will you show my work? Or will you write about my work? But you can say, will you come to my studio? Right? So it's the ask that you can do depending on all of your emotional intelligence and so on, right? So it makes sense to kind of advertise, if you will, the studio, no matter what you're doing, as the place where this happens, right? A place that people might want to visit because it's so magical, this kind of lab/magical workshop, wherever your studio is at the time. So here we have the photographer, Dawood Bay. He's out at location scouting. You've got all this equipment. You've got the team. And again, if you're a landscape painter, doesn't your work start outside someplace? When we're chronicling our work, isn't your studio where you're taking the first photos or making the first sketches type of thing? So that's kind of interesting when you think about this idea of chronicling your work. What is it made of? Now, again, I'll be talking about this more in the writing class, but a lot of times people have this, people are like, who are you and what do you do? And then the person will say, my practice is about the illusion of the dissolution of the picture plane. And I'm like, but what do you make? Just tell me, please. So here's the thing. Take wood. You could say I'm making this thing with wood. Well, wood, obviously, trees have a lot of meaning. They could be where they're from, their use in global history. They could be invasive. They could be endangered. So if you're working with different kinds of wood, say bamboo, that's from one part of the world. And then we have plywood, which is a super processed wood. So that definitely reflects on the meaning. And the same thing, you can say weaving. The minute you say alpaca, you have situated the work in the cultural traditions of the Andes. Now you don't have to say that. So that just took a lot of weight off, right? I'm really not kidding. Actually, the same thing with silk, right? Silk is made in a certain part of the world. It's used for certain things. It has a role and so on. So the more you can do of that kind of organically, the less you have to then lean into the meaning of the work. Highlight tools and equipment. So here we have the artist Jean Shin. All right, her medium is this tree. It's a dead red oak tree. And then as you can see, she has this large earth mover, which is a flag. So if you have a large earth mover, it should definitely be in your Instagram. But again, all of the tools that you're using and the materials have meaning. So we want to be sure to kind of get a specific, and this is a chance again to engage people in what you're doing and to use the pictures to tell a story. Share process in your own voice. Now, I know a lot of people do like to do the cut and paste, but I don't know. I don't think people read that much on here, honestly. So here, this is actually a carousel, which I'm going to talk about shortly, by Blanca Amezcua, right? And she's doing these papel picado. I love making papel picado, working with traditional techniques, because every step in the making feels like a portal to something inexplicably beautiful and magical. And she goes on, and I'm not saying that you need to do that in gush, but she's going to be telling the story in the pictures, and it sounds like her. What we're trying to do is sound like us, basically, and not a press release, because people just won't consume it on this platform. Unpack content. Again, you don't have to say a lot here, but we can kind of situate it. Is it a person, a place, a scene? Is it a real person? Is it a real landscape? Is it imaginary? Where is it from? And so on, kind of the basics, right? And in the mixed media, because that's where the materials come from, where the meaning comes from as well. Where did you find it? Did you find it in the garbage or grandma's attic type of thing? That's where the meaning comes from. And again, you don't have to say a lot. This is another carousel by the artist Kennedy Yanko. The medium is paint skin, and she has a series called Wildflowers. Why say more, right? The thing that you want to do, where's that? Oh, it's coming. Share intention. Now, again, if you've managed to say how you're doing it, not say, show, right? Show how you're doing it, and the steps along the way, the meaning could kind of become apparent. But if not, there's ways to do it. So this one is from Shanique Smith, Seeing If Lithography is a Place Where Textiles and Text Can Live and Breathe. I just love that so much. It makes me want to do a show on textiles and text. Then we have reels, which recently became 3 minutes long. If you want them to be, very few people are going to watch 3 minutes. People are going to watch like 5 seconds, but okay. So you can use these in a lot of different ways, like the stories. We can use it to show process. So this is Roberto Lugo. Now, people often ask if they need to do reels. If you are in a kinetic genre, like spinning wheel, gotta spin, right? Throwing pots, spinning wheel, dance, performance, music. Yes, you are going to want to use reels. Get yourself a light stand and a clicker. It'll make your life better. But on the other hand, what is painting but a series of actions, right? So here we have, this is just, I'm on the reels button of the painter Alana Softy, and she has a bunch of cool reels of her process in the studio. And a lot of this is about being consistent, right? About kind of not that you have to have, not about say like every Thursday at 3, but just like the kind of content you're posting is the way to get the best response. Now, it's important to put the most essential info after in the first 9 say words, because then it says more. So sometimes I saw one today. I am very, very pleased and proud that more. Right now, I would love to know what you're proud about before I take my second of my life to click, if you get my drift. So what we're doing here is less cutting and pasting of the whole fat paragraph of the press release, and more, what are they looking for? Be cool. Tell them, is it an artwork? Is it a person doing a thing like that? Then we're going to have our essential information, and one interesting point is usually enough. Now, carousels also grew. These are carousels you can have put images or videos in a post in your feed. They now go up to 20 images. They used to be 10. Again, I am not sure how many people are looking at number 20. I know there's times that I do it. I know there's times that you do it, and it's great to have it. But when we're trying to do this for work, the more you post, the less people are going to see what's important. So this happens to be a carousel of 2 from the artist Marie Watt. And she does a lot of participatory art and workshops and sewing circles and whatnot. So when you're working in those fields, participatory art, performance, social practice, where this process of working with people is so deep a part of the meaning as much as what comes out at the end, you're going to want to use these carousels. Again, keep in mind the order of the images. If you can do a dump, I'm just saying, I don't think people really read the dumps. I know it's fun to write that sometimes, but I don't want to be a hater, but whatever. And then if you want it to be considered a reel, you can just you can add music to your carousel, and you can also add type on the photo. And the music, by the way, is another way to really share your identity. Now, it's cool. You can use some of the popular trending songs, or, if you have a song about drinking, if your art's about espresso, like I guess you could pick a song called Espresso. But my point is that if you're a little bit deeper into music, right, and you're using music as an element in your work, then you can be much more specific about what songs or music you're attaching to your post, right? And it has its own meaning as well, right? So you're trying to add layers of meaning using, again, every tool that you have at your disposal. Promoting shows and projects. Here's this thing about promoting on social media. So, back in the day, until 10 years ago, really, basically an artist would create a show, and at the end, someone would come along and write a press release, or a curator would curate a show, and eventually someone would come along and write a press release. Now we have the opportunity to be promoting our projects for years, right? You could spend a year or 2 working on a show that, and you have the chance to promote all that time, but you're sure going to want to have a strategy, because that's a lot of time and a lot of posts, right? And we do want to think then from the very beginning about including social media in the initiatives when we start our marketing, and start posting, storyboard your project intertwined with other content. So I'm going to talk about that. Prep, no more broccoli. This one's called promote. This is all of the different things that you can post related to your show before opening. And I'm going to show you examples, not of all of them because time, but some of them. Build buzz in studio, post announcement, promote opening event. If it's a gallery, museum, whatever, introduce individual artists. I'll show you examples. You might have a chronicle of the installation if it's cool. That's today, opening today. Now you might have an opening recap if you have very beautiful photos, installation views, people seeing art, panels, events, and programs. We want to have a life of the show, not just be like 2 weeks left. Posts on individual artists and artworks, user-generated content. I'm going to talk about that too, right? Sharing audience posts about or from the show. Sharing press, reminding people of the closing, the last day, and wrap-up recap. Again, this is a menu. This is really a lot of posts. So if you're having a show, or, make a calendar, figure it out, make yourself some folders for photos and organize yourself, because this is a really long run. So like I was saying, we have a kind of before and an after here. The before starts in the studio, but then, so these are some posts I did for this client, the Ford Foundation Gallery, which had just opened. So this was the only content. So if you look before, there's no complete artworks. There are details. There's people unpacking them. There's people installing them, artists, gallery staff, artists installing their work, little details with brief descriptions, but no full views. And I kind of like that for your studio because we don't want to reveal everything. Then after it opens, yes, then you're going to show, once the lighting is set, your full gorgeous exhibition views, right? Of different angles. Of course, you're going to have people in the gallery looking at the work, experiencing the work. Panels before, panels after, individual artists with their work, individual artworks, and so on, right? So you're mixing it up and it's creating a narrative, again, that it's not, that this is a place where people are going and things are happening. And again, like, I don't know what percentage of people who follow your Instagram will actually be able to make it to your show, but the point is that you're using this Instagram to build visibility, interest, and relationships far beyond the exhibition. So as I was saying, we're kind of using the narrative in the studio to promote the show, and you can continue to do this. So this is Alice Shepard, Handle wheelchair dancer, who has great content about how they put together these performances. And this is just one example of it. It's a rehearsal view they're using for the promotion. And she's explaining, figuring it out in the air. That is really demystifying your process. The intricacy of barbed wire patterns. Did you know that there are thousands of types of barbed wire? No. Calls for intricate choreography. Here we are figuring out a partner and move, right? It's just one photo, but it's so compelling. Hashtags. I know you love your hashtags. Instagram does not love your hashtags anymore. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you. And actually just removed, it didn't happen yet, but they said they're removing the ability to follow hashtags. Now, say that you want to have a hashtag for your project. We want to have a unique hashtag that no one is using except you. Look at Cyber Feminism Index. That's a book that just came out from Mindy So. It's the only thing named that. Right? So if you look up the hashtag or look it up in the search, because again, the hashtags work less and less, that's what you're going to find. So say that you name your show Feminism. That's not going to be a good, that's not a good name for a show, but if it were, that's not going to be a good hashtag because or if you called your show like Seeing Red or Painted Black or something like that, those aren't going to be good hashtags because like, who knows what's on them. And we want it to be an intuitive hashtag. That means that people will figure it out because it's the name of the show or the book or the project, like Cyber Feminism Index. If you try and do Seeing Red BKLNY 2025, no one's going to use it, or like Robin will use it because I'm a nerd. But it's not going to be useful because we want to be able to track the coverage. That's one of the ways we're using it. Now, Instagram recommends a maximum of 3 to 5 hashtags that's specifically related, like say you're in, I don't know, like photolithography or something like that. All of those work in process. I'm sorry. In the end, I think they work against you, but if you love them, it's okay.
Sorry, Robin, you froze up for a minute there.
Oh,
there we go. I think you're back.
Oh,
you're back. It might just be me, but yeah.
So what, did you hear anything from this slide?
Yes, yeah, we heard don't use weird hashtags, make it purposeful. Yeah.
Cool. Make sharing easy. That's so weird that happened, but make sharing easy. Now, if you're using a hashtag, put it on the wall text, put it on your press release, and the same thing with the artist handles, right? If you're in a group show, an MFA show, whatever, consider including artist Instagram handles on artist bios, checklists, and wall labels. I love it when they're on their wall labels. I'm so much more likely to tag them, and that's what we're doing. This is all organic marketing. Monitor and share user-generated content. So say you're in the show Bronx Calling, this is the Artist in the Marketplace program in the Bronx. You would be monitoring the hashtag, and if anyone shares your work, you're like, oh, who is this person, right? So that's the research, and then you might share that. When your show opens, it's depending on the situation, the size of the show, I think it's great to have a coordinated announcement. So everyone sends it out at the same time. The email, the Instagram, it's like, boom. Now, and everyone is tagged in the text and the photo. So there's a number of ways to do this. Here we have a photo set. This is a pretty common way. The photo set, I told you we wanted good headshots. You can tag people. Now you can pull the tags down to the bottom so they don't block the face in the screenshot, but that's a kind of a minor thing, right? So this is a great thing to do because people do a lot of photo sets and I'm like, I can't match the caption. I don't have the facility. I don't have the time. Always tag all the people that you're posting in the picture as well. Now, depending on what kind of show you're doing, you can also have these specific graphics of individual artists, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So this way, when they appear on the feed, it's clear this is all from the same project, right? Even though there's other content. And I do love these profile photos. There are so many identity signifiers about all the things we talked about, the sewing machine, the mood board. I love these. Showtime. Showtime. Now, once you've done all that, we want to also add the show everywhere we can. And I do not understand why all the artists don't do this. Sometimes they say they're showing, and then I look at their Instagram and I'm like, you haven't posted since 2023, but okay. So here's different examples of that. So here we have in the bio, Quilt Lee, an artist whose work I just saw also at the, I saw both of these shows. Right, so that there's one place to do it. You can do it in your link in bio in different ways. What's up, what's going on, right? You can do it in your notes. As I said earlier, this is the artist swoon, lost in the land of, I would click on that because I want to know, right? You can also put it in your highlights and your pinned post. So I am like flood the zone. And sometimes people ask, should I pay? Should I boost the posts? And I'm like, put the show in your bio. I don't say that way, but it makes a lot more sense to try and infuse this organically where you can really, again, using the videos, the photos, the narrative, the design to get your message across. Collaborative posts expand audience. So this is now, this is the Brooklyn Museum. Oh, it was called Brooklyn Artist Show. So what the Brooklyn Museum did is that they had posts on individual artists, and we'll see more about how to write those next time, but they collaborated with the artists. In a collaboration, they appear to each account's followers. Now, imagine what a boost it is to these artists. The Brooklyn Museum is like 1 million followers, right? So that could, that's a great way for visibility. Or if you're in an MFA show or a project with 6 people or fewer, I would send out an announcement collaborating with all of them together to get the most exposure and bang out of it. But still, we want to promote with our own creative original content. So here we have Rebecca Morgan. She was having an artist talk at Aja Geisberg Gallery. She was serving donuts, which I think is smart. I'm just saying, but I'm a journalist. So, and again, like not everyone wants to go to an artist talk on a Saturday, you know what I'm saying? But it sounds fun. She sounds fun. Now she painted, one of them's a Tic Tac and one of them's an Altoid, and there's a whole conversation about it in the comments. But the point is, again, we wanted making ourselves a character. I'm not saying you have to do this, but we're trying to again show our event and our exhibition is someplace that people will want to go. This is another one of my sayings. Don't tell people how to look at your work. Give them ways to look at it. Now, these are older posts from Micheline Thomas, but I keep them because it's so clearly a strategy, a specific strategy. This is not a selfie, right? All of these pictures are her contemplating her artworks in situ. And then under each one, she doesn't copy and paste the press release, and she's like a super famous artist. She's not just sharing the post from the galleries. She's saying one thing that lets me in. Recently, a painting from my Color Purple series. This is a pivotal moment in the novel, a bit watered down in the movie, however, life-changing for me at 14 years old, right? So again, what does it do? Send you back to look at the picture. That's kind of the job of the words. And again, she's activating the space, and they're not JPEGs, right? They're not two-dimensional. We're seeing how the work looks in the space, how different all the spaces look. And I think that this is a very useful thing for you to try. I'm not saying you need to get that personal, but just a way in. Show viewers experiencing the work, right? No matter, I love this post from Shazia Sikander of, this is back when she had a show at the Morgan Library. And I love these students. It's so hard to shoot through glass. We all know, right? Doing the photo, they're all just so immersed in the task. I just thought it was charming. Share press coverage. I know the impulse is to be like, dear Robin, thank you for your brilliant, incisive story. You really got me. I'm like, I know. First of all, it does make some people uncomfortable. And second of all, for the rest of the readers, it's like, whatever. So try and use, a brilliant debut or a gorgeous colorist. Then you can use that and then save them and use them again. So say that you want to post the day before it's closed, you can be like, see the show that Robin called a brilliant colorist. Well, not type of thing, right? You can use the quotes later on your website. You can put them in your email list. So you want to be harvesting the good quotes. And those tend to be the kind of things like you can't say yourself, like you wouldn't have a quote saying, this work is oil on canvas, Robin Cembalest wrote, because we already know that. Now, Instagram in the last month alone has become a much more challenging and dangerous place. As you probably read, the CEO, Mark Zuckerman, has been aligning himself with Trump. There's bots that have been censoring people. Instagram just rescinded the restriction against hate speech against groups including queer, trans, and immigrants, and it ended external content moderation. So my advice on this is to keep yourself safe. First of all, be super cautious about what you're sharing. There's so much fake stuff out there. Really think before you write anything about whether you're going to really, I'm not, change people's minds and how, mute, block, whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe. And I think it's a situation where, sadly, it's become really problematic for people whose life practice and art practice is more in the political and social justice space. And a number of people have been leaving Meta and going to a new platform called Blue Sky, which is just about a year old. And it's kind of more like Twitter, but in the next week or two, it's supposed to launch a complementary app, a photo sharing app called Flashes. I did do an onboarding kind of guide to this. And if you sign up for my newsletter in my website, I'll send it to you. And finally, yes, you can post your cat. I told you, well, this is a working cat. Here we have Joyce Kozloff in her studio. And so the cat is doing its job because it's in the studio. Here's the thing about the cat. Like, say you get a kitten. The first day you're going to post the kitten and you're going to get, 800 likes. Then the next day you're going to post the kitten and you're going to get, and I know it's not about the likes, but I'm just trying to make a point, right? You get hundreds of likes. Unless it's a very talented cat or you really spend a lot of time, the bar for cat content is super high. I'm just saying. So, but if it brings joy and it's a working cat, then at least it has more meaning. And I don't want to overdo it, but I'm saying I'm not a hater. So like, yes, you can post your cat. People post their kids. Again, it's a personal choice. You can post the sunset. It's all good. And we want to play the long game. So I'm writing post about twice a week because people I think that's a good amount that's doable. Again, you don't have to post the minute you shoot. Shoot a lot in your studio. And then, maybe Friday afternoon, you're exhausted, go through the pictures, post a couple of things. Be your best self, right? I used to say be authentic, but I changed it. Be your best self. This is your public self that we want to be generous and sympathetic, bring joy and have fun. Seriously, the end. Now, next time, you already heard, we'll be doing crafting your bio and your artist statement. And then we're going to, on 3/27, do the public speaking. So with that, I'm exactly on time. Oh my God. We're going to open it for questions.
Yes, fantastic, Robin. That was a lot of really wonderful information. I am a little behind the times on Instagram, I must admit. I had no idea about the notes application there. So that was super cool to find out about. We do have a few questions in the queue here. If you do have questions for Robin, please enter them into the Q&A. We'll try to get to as many as we can before we end our time here together today. But let's start. First, we'll start with a question from Karen. So you talked about grid posts, you talked about stories and highlights and those kinds of things. How do you decide what to post in the grid versus a story versus a highlight? She says, I've been using stories as the more in the moment daily, or I'm sorry, I've been using stories as the more in the moment daily life, and grid as a more professional look. What advice do you have there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that is a good way to use it, right? The stories is in the moment, they're gone, they're going to be gone. Whereas what's on the grid is going to be visible for your audience when they come to your profile. Whether you're using video depends on what you're doing. I see a lot of people feel like they should use reels, and I see a lot of shaking pans across the surface of paintings, and I don't think that helps, right? Again, if you're using the potter's wheel or spinning wheel, yeah, you're going to want to use the video for that. And if it works in a photo, then it works in a photo, right? Or it might work in a photo set. Like, I do recommend a photo set, having a couple photos usually in the photo set. I think people are just used to them, used to looking at them now. And then also it serves up if people skip your photo set, it wants people to look at it. So Instagram will serve up the second photo, which is fun to know. So it's kind of based on that. Now you can decide later after you post your story, you know what? I want people to see that all that time, and you can put it on the grid. But like that. Now a highlight, you want to gather a bunch of stories together under a certain theme usually, right? So if you have, say that you have a show, you can almost like tour people through the show and put it in, like walk through my show, and it could have videos and photos and text. You see a lot of museums do that. It's not like you can do it. It's if you can make the videos, it's doable. Like I said, on view, up now, studio process are all good things for highlights. You just want to make sure to clean them out because they can get a little dusty there.
Just piggybacking on that, I know you talked a little bit about your pinned posts at the top. I mean, how often do you recommend refreshing those? Aside from if it's a show that you're pinning, I know some folks have other certain favorite things that they post and pin, and it's from years ago.
Well, I don't know if there's an actual fixed answer to that. I mean, if you want it to be part of your profile, then sure. I think the point is to unpin the things like the shows that are over, or if you change something. But if you want it as an element in your profile, then just leave it there.
Fantastic, thank you. I just want to pop in. We got a question about, it said I missed the first 15 minutes, but wow, you are awesome. Will this be recorded and available later? That was from Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. Robin is awesome. Yes, we are recording this, and the recording will be available early next week. I will send an email out to everyone who registered with a link to that recording, so no worries there. One other question for you, Robin. So this is somebody is asking, how would you use social media? You talked a lot about promoting events, promoting gallery shows. How would you recommend someone use their Instagram if they aren't actually having events and they're just producing work?
Okay, so if you're always doing a thing, right? You're sketching, you're rehearsing, you're practice. I mean, you can just be like practicing drawing hands type of thing, right? You can be, and I think, and again, that's why I said it's kind of better as a magazine than a portfolio, because the impulses, if you don't have a show, flashback from my show 5 years ago. Whereas I think it's, go into your studio, and I assure, like, go slow-mo, do time lapse, and just take us into what you're doing now.
Okay, questions are coming fast. I'm trying to keep up here. So um, let's see. Do you have any tips or tricks for artists whose mediums skew more toward like written or literary work?
Good question. One thing to remember is, again, everything is illuminated. So if you are creating text that you want to post, try and think of the words as pictures. Like, try writing them on with a crayon or an interesting, if you decide to go that route. also remember that when you're promoting books and publications, that the book can be a character in the story too, like we saw that with the Cyber Feminism Index. So that the book is an object and it has its own life type of thing. And also you still, whenever you're writing, you're still doing recon, right? It's like, all right, half the time it's on Google, I know. But I mean, who you are, right? In terms of what you're observing in the field of the world, ends up being a little bit more of your content, I would think. And maybe your content is based on the subject that you're writing about in one way or another. So I think it would be like that.
Thank you. So for a lot of artists, their work is very personal. They put a lot of themselves into it. Somebody asked a really interesting question about how do you get over the fear of posting?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Okay, so one way to do it is to just do small details. Like if you don't want to be in it, you could still put your hand with a paintbrush type of thing, right? So that might be, the photo might just be um a small, so you don't feel like you're really revealing yourself in a way. Now, again, my strategy of shooting every day for your week in a studio until you've got like a Man Ray, which works. You might find that you become enamored of your pictures and you do want to share them. Now, again, how much you reveal of yourself is a very personal choice. If your work is about that, I think that there's probably ways to signal pretty easily that it's personal. And again, it depends. It's more important to protect yourself in general, than to say, and be like, your protection is more important than your promotion. But I think, and see how other people are doing it. Take some time, look around, be low key. It's okay, and just see if you can't somehow, feel like you want to be talking to that you want people to really see the photos you shot, and then hopefully you'll get more, like kind of bold.
Um, so somebody is asking if for those of folks who are just starting out with Instagram, who have done previous shows and they've done a lot of other work, how far back would you recommend? I mean, would you backload the Instagram feed, or would you kind of like what you talked about, just start from scratch, showing your process now? How would you recommend going about doing that?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend backloading it, because I think as people follow you, you're going to be posting a lot, and that's going to work against you because they're going to stop engaging. And the point of the Instagram is to get people to the website in a certain way. Like, I don't know that people, and again, there's definitely exceptions, and it's not wrong to post your portfolio. I think it's better to, again, focus on what you're doing and try and draw them into the portfolio so they can see your practice. Now, if your older work is on view or whatever, like, sure, but we want it to be a little newsy kind of.
Let's see, who else do we have? Oh, somebody's asking, I recently switched from a commercial art business to a fine art practice, opening a new Instagram account for this new practice. But the old Instagram has so many more followers. Is there a way, like, how do you get your old followers to move with you to the new account?
Can you put something in your bio? Follow my other account and just have it there? That's probably what I would do. Now, they're not going to necessarily, I mean, it kind of depends if one is abandoning the old account or not, but that's what I would do. And then, don't follow a lot when you open a new Instagram. Don't follow a lot of people at once because it thinks you're a bot. But little by little, go through and pick out some followers and, try and create some content that's shareable, because that's really the way, for people to see you're there type of thing.
We have time for just a couple more questions. Here's one that I think probably a lot of people might struggle with. So when you have multiple events, 2 or more exhibitions, big commissions, etc., when the work is really different, Catherine is saying, I struggle to know what to post about so that my feed has a logical appearance. Sometimes my works look quite different, installation and painting, similar themes, but appearances can be very different. What advice do you have there?
That's what makes you, I wouldn't worry so much about the appearance being different. I would say that that's what makes you interesting in a certain way. And, there's certain ways that you can shoot and edit. I'm not saying filters, which I don't use, but if you shoot a certain way, because you're shooting, you can also think about, and this we'll talk about in the statement, like, how can I highlight, there's going to be certain essential qualities that all of the work shares. And that's the hard thing that we're going to be talking about next time when we talk about the bio, because we don't, it can't be like, I do painting, photography, sculpture, performance, and installation, like without, right? So thinking like, okay, I want to show my inspiration. I want to show my process, and not, they should all be good pictures. I think it doesn't matter if they look different as long as they're cool to look at it, I guess I would say.
So it doesn't necessarily need to be the same super. I mean, I think sometimes it's almost detrimental to have like the same super polished looking graphics across that people might turn people away. Be yourself.
I
Yeah.
think our field, you see this from the other influencers, like the real ones, uh, right? But in our field, how you actually edit and polish your photos, it's not what's going to get people. People are going to come and look at you as an artist because they think your vision is interesting and original and cool looking. Not the pictures. I mean, yeah, they should be good pictures. So yeah, I guess I would say that.
All right, let's do one more. I think you touched on this a little bit, but I think this is another one that comes up a lot. What are your thoughts on boosting posts and content? I can tell right now by your reaction what your thoughts are.
Artists doing it. I see artists doing it, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. So I guess the saying is, it's like chicken soup, it can't hurt. But I think, again, your effort is spent so much better creating organic content and building the way that the algorithm, quote unquote, algorithms work, is that it's sharing you and your content with people who have liked the same things or have the same people in comment type of things. And I think that in the end, that long, I just don't think, like, sure, people might see it, but at night, there's no real way to make sure that the people who get the boost, no matter what search terms you put, are the ones that are going to do the actions, right? And there's definitely exceptions, and certainly in ticket sales and things like that. And I'm not an expert in digital marketing. But I would say again that what's much more important, because no matter how you get people to your page, they're going to look at your profile. And it's just much more important to have a good profile and then a good website, so that no matter how they get there, they'll want to spend some time.
I have one kind of fun one that I noticed before. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Somebody was saying that Amy, your content-rich presentation helped me realize how much I don't know about Instagram. Could you recommend a few artists, in addition to yourself, of course, to follow who are utilizing many of the tips you covered? So you had some great examples in your slide deck there. Are there any others that you can rattle off the top of your head that may be good follows for folks? I'm putting you on the
Well,
spot here, I realized.
I think that the ones in the profile are definitely a place to start. Or and you can go and you can see who I follow and kind of poke around in there. All right, so I follow like 7,000 people, but whatever. Go to artists and see who they follow. And different kind of different profiles are good in different ways, right? That's why I like showing the different examples. Like, this one's great at reels, and this one has a great bio, and like that. So just do some recon and look around. Oh yeah, there's my Instagram, and if you go to the link in bio, you can sign up for my mailing list. Amazing.
Yeah, I highly recommend that. I bet there are lots of just the amount of content that we consumed in this 45-minute session. I can only imagine what other gems you have to offer in a newsletter. So yeah, definitely head on over to Robin's website. I dropped the link in the chat before. I'll do it again here real quick in case anyone missed it. That's where you can find Robin. We are coming up on our time today, so I just wanted to say thank you again, Robin. This was absolutely fantastic. Thank you all for taking the time to tune in. And I hope that we see you back here again in February 27th at 2 p.m. for artist statement and bios, and then Thursday, March 27th at 2 p.m. for public speaking for artists. Again, we did record today's presentation, so everyone who registered will get a copy of or a link to that recording early next week. Anything else you'd like to add, Robin, before we head out for the day?
Happy Instagramming.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.